Thank you very much. So yes, I had the graveyard shift, so I hope there's a little bit of energy left in the room. Masterclass asked me to talk about sales after a LinkedIn post that I shared a few weeks ago. Now, I'm not going to be talking at you for 40 minutes. That'll be incredibly boring. But I do want to actually take a quick sense check of the room. Founders, hands up. Investors? Okay, cool. That's good for me. Primarily founders. Let's talk about what I do in the first instance. Trinity Hawk is my company, which I founded last year. I've been in the corporate world for 20-something years. Sales for the vast majority of that. The journey as to how I got here, I didn't really plan on talking about this too much, so I'll keep it short, was I found a way to leave corporate employment, which I was in up until last year, which I'm very grateful for. Will never go back. Totally unemployable now. And when I've worked with smaller companies, scrappy, get shit done companies, those are the sorts of environments that I really enjoy and that I thrive in. And when everyone is doing the same thing and they just want to get to the same place, I just find that so energizing. So I take my talents to startups, scale-ups, growing companies. I have a 30-year-old business that is a client of mine, so it doesn't have to be a brand new organization. Typically, I talk about it in terms of what their sales organization looks like. And that's why I touched upon founder-led sales. This other client of mine, 30 years old, they have one sales manager who's relatively green, and we've done 3 pieces of work together already this year. So it can completely vary. There's an anecdote around that I will come to later on because it's quite important. Who recognizes this? Yes, sir. I was going to bring the DVD and hand it away, but A, always, B, B, C, closing. Yes, second prize was steak mouse. First prize was a Chevy, I think. Anyway, I started selling when I was 19, and this was the sort of thing that I thought selling was. My first sales job lasted 2 weeks. It was 100% commission only. I earned £0. The energy market had just been deregulated. This must have been 2001-ish, 2000. And we went knocking on doors with a postcode, say, go do that. And go around all the small businesses, get the code off their meter, write it on there, and you get 50 quid. It was absolutely horrible. And no joke, I ended up in a brothel in Preston. Didn't stay very long. Now, this was the post that I'd referred to earlier. And to be honest, from my side, and this is an interesting journey that I've been through as a founder, and doing this and selling myself ultimately is, where do I pitch how I'm talking about what I'm talking about? And that might sound incredibly vague, but there are many things to me that seem second nature, really basic, natural reflexes to other people that just aren't. And I've learned that a whole lot over the last 12 months. So some of these, I'm going to dive into a bit more detail. There will be time for questions. Right, I spent all that time doing build-ups on PowerPoint, and we're in PDF. So please stay with me. This is meant to build. So here I wanted to talk about generic, blanket, cold outreach. I think there's a difference, because I've had this conversation a number of times, between generic and between cold. Cold, by definition, is you contacting somebody that you don't know. That's cold. And actually, in a lot of the sessions today, we've heard a lot about warm intros and how that's important. And that will be a consistent theme. But the generic, I despise. And as a salesperson, you might think, well, why? Again, lots of people have already spoken today about cold outreach to get leads in. Depends on the sort of business you have. Somebody told me the other day, you need a known presence and a known USP within a market for outbound, cold, generic outbound to stick. Right? Well, I don't. I've been going a year. So I've never done that. And neither are my clients. So this guy, hey Dave, is there a Dave in here? Because I'm not Dave. This guy's got my name on. Excellent. So if your name's Dave, Terence wants to speak to you. This chat mark looked like a vaguely personalised email. Maybe you had a quick look at my LinkedIn post. Hey Dale, our ecosystems overlap. We conduct sales due diligence. I never said that. And advise on growth, scale strategy. Okay, I'd love to connect. So I looked him up, and he lives down the M3 from me. Brilliant, let's get a coffee. Crickets. Obviously not that important. Matt has reached out to me because we both work in finance businesses, apparently. Nobody told me. And I had another one. Trusting that I'm well. Very well, thank you. It's been a long time since we connected. I remember that fateful day. We provide enterprise support to our customers in data services, cloud services, and Power BI automation. That would be wonderful if you're running a business that does that, but I do not. Anyway, those are just a few trite examples. This was a LinkedIn chat with a client of mine. She's been brought on recently to do a couple of days a week to kind of do what this says, right? Cold outbound. And she's from real estate and she's done recruiting and things before. And I said, look on LinkedIn. They're a professional services organization, a consultancy. So look on LinkedIn to see how they might be hiring somewhere. That will give you an idea as to what sorts of roles they're looking for. Is there a change in their team? And just some general context. And she said, is this the right one? And posted me a link. And I just wanted to give you an example of what I sent to her last week and what my thought process was. Because the other thing this touches upon is, well, if it's not generic, what is it? Well, it's custom, and it's thoughtful, and it's relevant to the person you're sending the message to. And my personal view is that early-stage businesses need to spend the time doing work. So I looked on the page, the LinkedIn page that had posted the job, and that wasn't their master company. It was a subsidiary. So first of all, she got completely the wrong end of the stick. So I started questioning that, did some research. I found that job app on their website, and the URL, where are we, had Workday in it, so I knew what their tech stack was. Point 2, I found a different company page that are actually headquartered in Australia, with 3,500 extra people on that page, which told me that, again, a bit more about company structure. And then a Google search, I found a video from their HRD talking about Workday, which was related to why my client wanted to speak to them in the first place. So then, they have a whole raft of, from the customer's mouths, hearing around what their problems are, why they bought Workday, what the return on investment is, and everything else. What else did I do? I found, looking at the other company page, that they actually have a size of a team already in ANZ. So looking at the first hire in the UK, then looking to expand. Well, why is that? Again, it's just having an informed opinion. Excellent. Again, I spent ages doing some building on this in PowerPoint, so I'm really sorry. The second point was not having a CRM or something of that ilk, and everything's in people's heads. One of my clients, we've lost 2 deals because an email sat in his inbox, not actioned, didn't tell anyone, didn't do anything about it. The other one, it was in LinkedIn. DMs, previous client from when he was a consultant. So it was a warm lead, right? He knew Chris knew him, knew what the business was doing, asked him to join for a tender with a big company. It was AstraZeneca. He missed it. He found an email or another DM saying, sorry, we've finished the process. Yeah, that was my face. Gone. Deal lost. And I just said to him after that one, I said, just tell me, text me, whatever, I'll put it in and it won't lose track. But I don't know what's in his inbox. So one of the other things I wanted to talk about was the metrics in having a process. And again, it could be a system. I use HubSpot. HubSpot have got a free Excel template that's kind of CRM light for free if you really don't want to go down the rabbit hole. But I ran a forecast call with one of my clients and we went through some of these metrics. This was their year-to-date performance last month. Their year ends end of February. So they've already done their annual number. They had no idea. And they was jumping up and down. 66 days was average sales cycle length. This was their average deal size. This was what's in the pipe for next year. This was their margin on sold business this fiscal. And this was how many deals they needed in the pipe to do next year's number. Now, I'm going to have to read some of this because, again, it's been completely obliterated. But the point I wanted to make here is, well, what can you do with all that data? And I broke it into 3 quick buckets when I was building this deck. So insights, decisions, and actions. So as I already discussed with the 112, well ahead of plan by Q3. Okay, so what does that do? How does that impact the business? What decisions have been on ice or can now be made with that information? Does it mean we can bring hiring plans forward? Does it invest in a new solution? The founder's got some fancy AI thing that he wants to build, so we can go away and do that now. Or enter a new market, or option D. Margin is lower than target. Okay. Why? What's hurting us? Deals ABC hurts us because we have a deal, margin by deal reporting capability now. Why is this happening? We're going to come back to this in a minute, but sales talking to finance, very important. Do we need to revisit our pricing model? How are we discounting? What's the delegated chain of authority for discounts? Are we doing it in the right way? Are we all have a consensus? Does it make good business sense? Etc. And then spend some time on analysis. Deal cycles shorter than expected. How can we use this to our advantage? Can we influence this? Can we influence deal cycle length? So do we have an issue with it being 66 days? What's known here is pipe to conversion, right? How many deals do we sell to do 112 versus what came into the pipe, right? We may have sold, 11, 12-ish based on that average deal size, but did we lose 75? And is that an issue? And again, what can we do with that? Just some thoughts. Misaligned compensation plans and £0 commission structures. The client I mentioned earlier, the 30-year-old business, we had a few strategy sessions, say that with our teeth in, and we spoke about this, and there's an example here that I've taken from them. The first thing I want to say is that commission drives behaviours, fact. Secondly, the commission plans need to be built top-down, bottom-up, which means the person with the quota needs to fully understand how they can make it and believe in it. And when that all adds up across a team of 1 or 10 people, the business does their number and everybody's happy. If there's a misalignment there, there's going to be problems. And I've been on the receiving end of going into a new financial year and sometimes 2 months after it started, not yet having a comp plan to sign and not knowing what's going on, or seeing very lofty targets at town halls and QBRs and thinking, well, what's changed? And I'll get to that point where what's changed at the bottom. So I won't read this out verbatim, but basically we're working out, okay, and in this example, the sales manager does hold the entire company quota because it's a very small organization. So call them whatever you want. Salary, target, on target and earnings. So if they do 100% of the number, that's what they can expect to take home. And that transparency is very key, obviously. But the company has a target of $1 million. Booked revenue. This is not RevRec. This is not anything else. This is what sales have signed off and has been closed in your CRM. When that £1 million comes in, is a finance conversation. Right? Because that's how it works. This then looks at, okay, what did we do last year? And where's the revenue coming? And in this example, we have a medical instrument, lenses that are built upon those instruments, how much comes in from enablement and training, and then what the required uplift is. So the question then is, Mr. or Mrs. Account Executive Sales Manager, you have a 17% uplift in your quota for next year. Awesome. What else have you given me to do that? Because if it's just do more with the same, but some companies it's do more with less. How does that actually look in the real world? But having this sort of analysis will give you a bit more of an insight into what conversations need to happen with whom. One of the other points I mentioned was the fear of the ask. This happened to me recently. I was approached by somebody trying to sell me in PR work in some magazines. We had a quick call. Sounds great. Bloody lot of money. And then it quickly went from that to, so when should we have the onboarding call next week where we start this? I've not said yes yet. And I've not said yes yet because you've not asked me anything. And that trust got completely obliterated in seconds. From an enterprise standpoint as well, or B2B, there's a whole buyer enablement aspect as well. Depending on what you're selling and to whom and how revolutionary that may or may not be, and who you're speaking to in the organizations, they don't know how to buy. It's your process that you have to pull them through. But I found this image on a HubSpot blog, and we're not going to talk about sales processes today. I'll bend your ear about that another evening. But I like the way it was displayed. One of my very early jobs in telesales, outbound, selling personal loans for Royal Bank of Scotland before that all went the way it did. Wasn't my fault. In the sales training, they spoke around getting lots of small yeses. Right? And that can be completely tailored and custom, but what I'm trying to say is don't do what the PR chap did to me and just go, right, Dale, you've seen the price. When are we starting? Bang. That's a massive chasm to jump. I've not said yes probably once or twice yet. Another example actually I was going to give of this, which is, it was after that job. It was inbound sales, selling mobile phone contracts. Do you remember OneTel? Anyone? Right. Anyway, owned by Centrica, brand new team was spun up, and this guy came in. We were talking about phones, tariffs, all the rest of it. This is like 2004. And he's like, I just need to think about it. Every salesperson's worst nightmare. It's like, okay, that's cool. So when you call back, it's a contract. So we have to do a credit check, right? That's just how these things work. And I just want to put your name down on the details. So when you call back, and you ask for me, I've got your details. Sure thing. Guess it's Dave at 123 Street. Okay. Right, I just need to post that credit check. Is that okay? Because sometimes it refers, which it did, I wouldn't lie, and it'll go to the underwriters. And, it could take a few hours, it could take a couple of days. Yeah, okay, just push that through. And he got accepted immediately. I said, Dave, it's just been accepted. Can I just send the phone out? And he was like, yeah, okay. So that wasn't planned by any stretch of the imagination, and I couldn't have orchestrated those outcomes. But I guided him step by step, and within 5 minutes, I'd made a sale. He was happy, I was happy. Another point, selling on feature functionality and not value. I think especially in the SaaS space versus, say, services. Is anybody familiar with this idiom, if you will? This is the chap who fixed a ship engine and then with a hammer in 3 seconds by going in the right place and then sent them an invoice for $10,000. And they said, what's going on? And he said, let me break it down for you. So he sent them an itemized bill. Hammer, $1. Knowing where to knock, $9,999. But the point remains, the value to this company of this ridiculously oversized engine, the amount of lost revenue from it being stuck in a shipyard, spent months already trying to work out how to fix it and finding other people, and this guy's fixed it in 5 minutes. How does that value not equate? Of course it does. And I have similar conversations with my clients as well. And it's hard when you're in the services-based business to step away from, well, it's hours times rate, right? And then try to sell the value of that. But that is a hole you can't easily get out of. Here's what we're going to do for you. So a few things I mentioned earlier about buyer enablement, so I'm going to bring some of it back. They don't know what they don't know. And you can take that however you want. They don't know what questions to ask. You have to guide them through that for them to realize what the value is. This is a big one. This is my other client I mentioned, the 30-year-old company, came to me via a fractional CMO that was working for me. And she said, someone that I'm speaking to has asked me for sales training. I don't think you do that, but do you want to have a call? And I was like, of course I'll have a call. I'm a sales guy. What a call. This is the MD of the company asking a marketing person for sales training. And that's the perfect example of coming to somebody with a solution. Sorry, what is it you're trying to do? What problem are you trying to solve here that you think going to get sales training is going to fix? So we spoke. And I kind of just drew a line under it and I said, look, this is what I do. And I started from zero. And she went, that's what I need. And I was like, cool. We got there in the end. They don't know the full range of benefits that they can realize. Your business has customers. And if this company hasn't bought what you do, your service, or from one of your competitors previously, then they're not expected to know why this is the best thing since sliced bread and why the value adds up and they should be paying what they're paying and what your competitors charge. So you have to walk them through that. And this is a big one. We'll talk about buyer enablement, but buyers are not the ones in the room with the decision makers when you're not. So you might have a coach or a technical buyer or an economic buyer or a business user. Those are the 4 big personas, right? Who's going to pay the money to you and sign that off? Who thinks your tool should sit within the enterprise architecture? Who's going to be using it day to day? And who's got the inside track and the ear to the people that matter? Because if you don't touch all of those, again, you're relying on the ones that you are, speaking to other people that are influential and do have a say when you're not in the room. And another one, buyers will sooner take action to remove pain than obtain pleasure. So rather than say, look at this amazing new world that we can go to, it's not real, it's not tangible. The pain that they feel today is. And that's what you have to shine a light on. You see all this shit you told me that you don't like doing last week when we had the discovery call, and all this money it's costing you, and all these things that you can't do? Well, why don't we do them and take the pain away? That's much more straightforward than painting a vision of utopia. Negotiation, leaving money on the table. This is what I used to think negotiation was 20 odd years ago. And I was flicking through, have you heard of Chris Voss, the FBI dude that now writes books and goes on podcasts? He's got a book called Split the Difference. Yes, read it, but do so with a pinch of salt. I had a quick flick through the first 2 chapters yesterday. I was like, what's his definition? I also asked ChatGPT as well, obviously. And it was getting the other person to do what you want. Getting them to think it was their idea, inception, blah, blah, blah. However, I have another book on negotiation, and it says where both parties win. And I genuinely believe that that is the case, especially in B2B sales. You're not going to persuade somebody to buy some software and enter into a 1, 2, 3 year contract where they don't want to do it, is my personal opinion. So, how do you approach it? This is touching negotiation, this is touching value selling, right? What are your non-negotiables, quantitatively and qualitatively, right? What do you need? What makes a valuable customer to you? It's not just sign this at list price. Everyone's happy. Have an informed view of what you are willing to give or what you want to take, and write that down deal by deal and have a template going in, right? I've given some random examples here of stuff. Payment terms. So, for example, my very first deal, so I founded this business in August last year. I didn't sign my first bit of business until February this year. That was a long 6 months. I read a book on consulting that a friend who's doing something a little bit similar to me recommended. And it said, offer a discount for an upfront payment, which I did. And they took it. So before I'd even stepped in the room with my first client, they'd wired me 45 grand, which meant my mortgage got paid the next month, legitimately. Use of logo, testimonials, going on reference calls, right? They cost nothing to the client, but they are super valuable to brand new businesses. Extend the term. We can't afford that per user per month. Okay, we'll bring it down, but you need to sign with us for 2 years, not 1. Additional service rate. Well, if they take other products, could work both ways. We'll give you a steal on the first bit, but if you want to use something else, and in my business that's a change order for all my time, well, the rate might be higher. And I'll always start with the rate higher because it's a lever to pull. If I'm comfortable with the other rate on the rest of the work, I'll just move it down. Looks like I've turned everything around and done them a favour. But I know that that's probably going to come. And obviously that comes with experience. Who's going to ask for what? So front load it so that you've got the levers to pull. Free trials, talking about you on socials, etc., etc. Now, one more thing before we open it up to questions. A fellow founder of mine mentioned an interaction that they had recently with a prospect where they felt that they didn't have control and that the call had been taken over by the prospect, and it was quite interview-like or almost inquisition-like. And the question posed to a group that we're in was, how do we better handle the conversation? And my initial reaction was, how do we handle the entire engagement, right, rather than just that individual call? So what are the expectations of both parties going into each meeting, call, or otherwise, depending upon how that came about? But also use this as something that we've not spoken about in terms of qualification criteria. What does good business look like? Do you want to work with idiots that treat you a way that you don't want to be treated, that might pay the bills? And then we go back to one of the earlier slides around the whole account planning thing. How do they make money? Who do they hang out with? Where have they worked before? What have we got in common? All the basics. That will give you an informed point of view as well coming in terms of, does this match me, my business, what we're trying to do? Is it good business? But also being a little bit brazen and pulling them through. I've used that word already about 3 or 4 times, pulling them through the process. It also instills some confidence in them that you've done this before, that they feel like they're in a safe pair of hands. You're going to guide them. We're going to get them to answer the right questions, bring the right data to the front so that you can have a meaningful process. And I've touched upon this before, but I'll mention it again. It's in my notes around multi-threading, if anyone's heard that hashtag flying around. But it goes back to, you can't just have a single touch point within your prospect. That person will not fill all of those 4 roles and any other periphery roles around, put it on a race or what have you. And it's very unlikely that deal will live and die by that one person. There are other people, you're just going to find them. And the one thing that I'll end on, that we finished that conversation with is, and it was a coach of mine that mentioned this to me last year when I was going through this early 40s crisis / start a business, was, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. And it took me a while to really understand what that means. But in the end, I walked away from 3 pieces of business before I signed my first piece of business. And even though I went with one that I was on the fence with, they're proving themselves that I shouldn't have done that. But as I alluded to earlier, I was a brand new founder, bills need to be paid, and that contract ends in 3 months, so I'll be out of there. That's it for me so far. I would love you to scan this. I'm going to launch a newsletter. I've decided that today is the time that I announce that. So obviously it costs you absolutely nothing. But there's a wee form on there to put your email address in. I am going to be giving away some tickets to Web Summit. I know it's very late in the day, but if anyone has colleagues or contacts or otherwise that are attending, I'll be giving 2 away by the end of the week. Questions?